Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we've got your Week 14 start and sit video for the wide receiver position. Again, if you guys have not already seen our videos, this is always going to be based off of full PPR and half PPR. If it is a standard league, you may have some questions, and of course, hit us up in the comments. We'll be able to help answer those lineup questions for your receivers. Remember, this is the last week before the playoffs, or at least for most leagues. You may already be in your playoffs. Hopefully you're not because of all the buys that we've got going on. There are 6 teams on a bye, which is ridiculous at this point of the season. But hopefully you guys have not started. You're fighting for that last playoff spot. Maybe you're fighting for seeding. This is a very important week. Now, these are the receivers I recommend starting this week. They're obvious. They should be in your lineup no matter what the situation is, whether it be a matchup, they just matchup proof, or again, they're, on a high-powered offense that's going to score. Now, the first receiver I recommend as a good start is going to be DJ Chark versus the Vikings. Vikings have struggled greatly against the pass. And a lot of it is they do put up a lot of points. And realistically, when you're a team that scores a lot and you're up big, of course, you're going to be a little bit softer on the defensive side. You're kind of doing that bend, not break aspect where you're just trying to keep the teams ahead of you, not giving up the touchdowns or the big plays. And a lot of garbage time gets kind of built up. So that's part of the Vikings problem. But I still think their defense is struggling. They're not getting after the quarterback like they were hoping they would. Their secondary is just a little bit older when you look at what they've got out there. Now, with the Lions, they've got a really good offense. It's kind of funny. They actually have the Lions as a team that should be beating the Vikings this week. You got a 10-2 team that is considered more of like an underdog against the Lions, who are absolutely, I would say, mid right now at this point. Now, Amon-Ra is obviously going to get his targets. He's going to be the best option in this game. But I like Chark in this one because he's actually performed really well. In the games that DJ has played, he's being targeted at least 6 times a game. So, again, 6 times. I can see that 6 to 8 times in this game. It's going to be a high-scoring game. He can convert probably 5 to 7 of those catches. Maybe a 13-point average, 13-yard average. He's going to get you double digits, 14, 16 points, somewhere around there. So he's a nice little flex play. I would say a low wide receiver 2 at this point, kind of the mid-range wide receiver 2. But I like DJ Chark. A lot of people have asked about him. Again, based off of what's going on with the buys, you're probably playing him, and I actually like him this week. Another receiver I like this week is Jerry Jeudy versus the Chiefs. Look, Chiefs allow 38.4 points and 168 receiving yards combined to receivers. Broncos will have to pass to at least try to make this somewhat of a game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Sutton's out. There's not a lot of options or weapons for the Denver Broncos, so Jeudy is going to be heavily targeted in this one. Now, of course, with that said, the Chiefs are obviously going to know that and obviously make sure they are putting as many players on his side, doubling up with safeties, corners, whatever the case may be. But Jeudy was already starting to become the clear-cut wide receiver 1, even when Sutton was on the field. Now, they both haven't played a lot together. They both have been dealing with their own injuries. And let's be honest, Russ has just not performed. He has not performed anywhere near to the Pro Bowl level or realistically potential Hall of Fame level. So I do have some reservations, with this one. But again, with all these teams on a bye, with injuries and things like that, you're probably starting Jeudy this week. I expect him to be that mid to high range wide receiver 2. I do see a 100-yard game in this one. I see 8 to 10 catches. And hopefully a touchdown to kind of give you really a big boom in this one. But I like Jeudy. Don't be afraid to put him in there, especially at the flex spot if that's what you got. But I like him at the wide receiver 2. Another receiver I like is Nick Westbrook versus the Jaguars. With Burks out, obviously everyone's first thought is, okay, is Robert Woods worth a start? I'm not thinking at all Woods is worth a start. He is not anywhere near the player that he once was for the Rams. I like Westbrook a little bit more just because of the fact that he's a little more athletic. They move him around a lot in that offense. He's not just sitting in one spot. He's going to get, obviously, the second best corner on the offense and possibly the slot. So this one, I expect him to be a nice little sneaky play. Jaguar secondary is vulnerable. They allow a lot of passes down the field. I mean, look at what the Lions just did against them. This is not going to be that kind of game. I think, obviously, Titans are going to control it by Derrick Henry running the ball. But if you're going to get 7 to 8 targets your way, I think it's going to be Westbrook compared to Woods. So, again, I like him as a nice little sneaky play this week. Now, as far as sits go, my first receiver I have is a good sit. It's Juju Smith-Schuster versus the Broncos. The one thing I will give credit to the Broncos is that their defense is actually really good, to the point that they're probably frustrated with obviously how the season has gone. The offensive has performed, yada, yada. But with this matchup, Juju is expected to obviously still be the clear wide receiver 1, but the last 2 games, he's averaged 6 points in fantasy. He is not being heavily targeted. They haven't had to, besides the Bengals game, but for the most part, they haven't had to pass like crazy. So this game's probably no different. I see them being up. I see Travis Kelce having a great game. Pacheco, I see him having a great game. I even see McKinnon in the backfield having a great game. I don't necessarily see the receivers having a great game. And the defense is going to do a really good job of obviously trying to stop them. They only allow 120 receiving yards combined to receivers. So they do a really good job. And again, ever since Juju's been dealing with his injury, and he's struggling drastically. So I'm not starting him at all this week. Now, Amari Cooper's another receiver I'm considering sitting if I don't have better options against the Bengals. I know Cooper's obviously dealing with an injury, and there's a good chance he could possibly miss the game. So you got to pay attention. Make sure you're watching any news, reports, things like that could possibly tell you if he is playing or not. But with that said, the Bengals defense actually has done a really good job as of late against the pass. They're holding receivers to 28.5 points combined. And you're dealing with a rusty Deshaun Watson. He's throwing at people's ankles. He's not looking anywhere near the right reads at all, throwing where he should be. So until Watson starts to become a little bit clearer at the starting, quarterback position and this matchup, I'm not starting Amari Cooper. You may have to based off your other options because of buys and injuries, but if you have something better, I'm putting Amari Cooper on the bench. Last receiver I'm going to recommend sitting is this DJ Moore this week versus the Seahawks. You're probably not starting DJ Moore anyways. He's probably may even be in your waivers. Who knows? But Moore has not had the season that, like many, like myself as well, thought he was going to have this year. He showed some flashes last year. He's always done pretty well, but the quarterback situation is just so bad and it's drastically affecting him. And it's no different even with Sam Darnold in there. This is also a tough matchup against the Seahawks. The Seahawks game script obviously will force DJ Moore to probably see some targets. But the Seattle Seahawks have done a really good job against the wide receiver 1, holding receivers like Devontae Adams to 14 points, Mike Evans 10 points, even DeAndre Hopkins 13 points. Those are 3 of the last 4 games. They've had those matchups and have done a really good job at stopping their top receiver. So I don't see why DJ Moore would be any differently. There's no reason for that. I don't like him at this matchup this week. And until they really get a quarterback for Carolina, unfortunately, DJ Moore is really struggling and really should go to a team that could probably use his talent. Now, as far as sleepers, I don't really have any good sleepers this week because a lot of it is just the fact that there's so many teams on a bye. I mentioned some really good starts, some good sits, and obviously your obvious receivers. Now, one of the group of receivers I did not mention or put as an obvious or start or sit is really the 49ers receivers. You've got Purdy in there at quarterback. There's a lot of uncertainty of how he's going to perform. There's a lot of uncertainty how that offense is going to play out. I think McCaffrey's going to have a great game. But with that said, Ayuk and Debo, nobody knows what to do with them yet. Debo has really struggled. He's not performed really well. Ayuk actually has been the better receiver as of late. And I think with the addition of McCaffrey, Debo's value is just completely changed. He's no longer the dual threat of running the ball, being moved around. He's really just been the wide receiver 1 on that team, and he's not been able to take advantage of that. So as far as the 49ers receivers go, I like Ayuk higher than Debo as far as ranking goes. I think based off of your roster, you may end up putting Debo at your second slot or flex, just because of, again, your roster might be dealing with injuries. Maybe you've got some players on buys. So I understand playing Debo this week, but I didn't want to put him as a sit because I don't think he's quite necessarily a sit based off of what's out there. But I'm not crazy about his matchup. Like I said, I like Brandon Ayuk a little bit more. I like his gameplay. I like the way he's been able to take advantage of his role because he is more of a true wide receiver than Debo. Debo is a very, very talented player. He just needs to be moved around and utilized properly. And right now they're not doing that. So those are my starts, sits, and sleepers for the wide receiver position for week 14. If you guys do have questions of who you should be starting in your lineups, of course, hit us up in the comments down below. Ask away. It doesn't have to just be receivers. It could be quarterbacks, running backs, and tight ends. We'll be here to answer your questions. If you guys did enjoy the content and you guys are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that notification bell is on. That way you guys are notified every time we drop a video just like this. And of course, if you guys did enjoy the content, make sure you hit that like button. It's greatly appreciated. Don't necessarily have to spread it to your teammates and league mates out there, but if you guys did find this stuff helpful, spread it to other people that might be outside of your league but might want some information. We'll be, of course, there for you guys. Make sure you guys check out our start sit videos for the quarterback and running back, and stay tuned for the tight end one as well, and we'll check you guys out next time.